Welcome back. It's The Treatment, which you can also hear at KCRW.com. I'm in Santa Monica. My guest, director Wes Anderson, here for his sixth time out of the 7 movies he's done, is in London. His new film is, of course, Moonrise Kingdom, which has been a bunch of firsts for you. Your first time at the Cannes Film Festival, and you set a box office record with the opening weekend of the film in the States. So what does that all feel like for you?
I hesitate to use the word to say breaking box office records at this point. The box office record relies on being in a very small number of theaters. It's a very small number of very full theaters. This
doesn't sound like a Texan snatching defeat from the jaws of victory here, Wes.
Yes, you're right. It is actually it's a great launch for it, and Cannes was sort of fantastic. We had our whole group there, except for Fran McDormand couldn't make it, but everybody else, the rest of the cast were there, and a lot of our group and my friends were there, and it's really something. It's a very choreographed operation, but there's a lot of emotion in this whole ritual. Have you been many times?
Yes, a lot of times. And in fact, I've been there a few times and run into Bill there, and so it must have been great being there with him. And to have him go with the film must have been really something, too, for going with Bill Murray.
I've been to a few festivals with Bill over the years. If you're going to sit up in front of a group of people and answer questions, there is nothing more reassuring than having Bill Murray next to you. All you have to do is look to him, and he can take over and make it entertainment. And also, along with being a great public presence, he's also there's no better person to have on your side. There's no better person to keep your morale up, and everybody else's.
Tell me about the very first time you met him. I know we've talked about this here before. I want audiences to get a sense of this.
We had sent the Rushmore script to his agent. He had an agent at the time, and she, I think, kind of pressed him that he ought to read this, but we kind of expected to never hear back, because that was the word. That was the word on the street. You're sending it into the ether. But then I was at Donald DeLine, a Disney, one of the Disney vice president, or I don't know what you call his position, but Donald DeLine was one of the big
production executives.
Yeah, that sounds right. And I was there we were having a meeting, and then his Donald DeLine secretary got a call and said, we have Bill Murray calling for Wes, which I was like, how does Bill Murray know I am in Donald DeLine's office in Burbank? And Donald DeLine was very gracious, and he cleared everyone. He immediately kicked everybody out of his office, including himself, and told me to sit behind his desk and take the call, which lasted about 45 minutes and was almost entirely Bill describing the story of a Kurosawa movie, Redbeard. Anyway, at the end of it, I said, "So is this? What is? Are you going to? Does this mean you want to be in the movie?" And he said, "Oh yeah." I was like, oh, great.
Well, that anecdote was worth it just to hear my guest director, Wes Anderson, use the word on the street. Wes Anderson is the director of the new film, Moonrise Kingdom. It's The Treatment. You can also hear at KCRW.com. But as you were talking about Redbeard, of all things, it made me think about how, for the first time in one of your movies, there's a real sense of physical and emotional jeopardy. I think partially because it's so focused on the kids that I think we feel in a way we hadn't before.
Yeah, Owen and I used to always discuss whether or not the movies that when Owen and I were first writing these movies together, and Owen's obviously acted in...
You mean Owen Wilson, of course, who you started with.
Owen Wilson, yeah. We did used to talk about, can anyone die in our movies? Is it conceivable that someone can die? And I think eventually we did. Eventually, along the way, I killed some people, but for a long, and some animals too. But for a long time, I thought I don't think the tone. It's sort of like people don't die in Lubitsch movies or Preston Sturges, and maybe those were some of the inspirations, but I think this movie, is one of the ones where they could die.
Well, yeah, because if you want to go with the comparison to Lubitsch and Sturges, there's a lighter than air quality. There are certain physical laws that they can't really violate. And then when you said Night of the Hunter, it was definitely something I thought of early on. Just when you see kids by the water in the wilderness of that age, you can't help but think about that. And that's kind of sense of fear. And there really isn't any one person here that they have to be afraid of, but just the idea of these two children being on their own. And even though you definitely evoke a sense of innocence, there is that kind of, that very real jeopardy that makes this, for me, a very different kind of film for you.
When Bruce Willis, who plays the island police captain, or really the whole island police force, I guess, in this story. When he first read the script, he called me and told me what his thoughts about the character and so on. And he said something which I thought was right, which was that he felt his character, he's called upon to sort of rescue these kids and protect them and bring them to safety when they've run away into the wild. But really, he doesn't believe in what he's doing. He would rather just let them take all the risks that they're taking, which are genuine risks. But his feeling was, looking at his own life and the lives of the people around them, he thought, let them just go for broke.
I just found myself thinking that sense of each one of these adults seeing something very different, this situation bringing out something very different in everybody. And just seeing everybody, each of the adult characters have a chance to sort of reflect on their own loneliness is kind of fascinating too.
Yes, a friend told me that he said the movie is all outsiders. And I think that's probably right. There, all these characters are kind of a pack of lone wolves, and some of the personalities, some of these actors bring some of that to it. We have, as this couple who are the parents of the girl in the story, Bill Murray and Fran McDormand, who are both very kind of formidable, independent people. We have Edward Norton is the scoutmaster of this scout troop that the boy has escaped from, essentially. And Edward is somebody who actually could be kind of a good colonel. Rather than just a scoutmaster, he's very competent with. He's somebody who, if your plane crashed in the jungle, it would be great if you had him to lead the group out of it, lead the passengers out.
He's certainly very competent in the outdoors. I mean, that's one thing about him. He knows all of that.
Exactly, yeah. And he also could have flown the plane that crashed. He's a pilot too.
Yes, he.
And then we also have Tilda Swinton. Her character is called Social Services, who's kind of some sort of administrator of an orphanage or something like that.
And wears a shocking blue outfit, too.
Yeah, I had kind of vaguely pictured something Powell and Pressburger in her, but when she actually appeared, she looked completely Powell and Pressburger. She looked like half Deborah Carr and half young Maggie Smith, and really seemed like she'd walked out of one of those 40s Technicolor British films.
Well, you certainly stage her as if she's in one. I mean, she's in sort of color terms, she's the most vivid person in the entire movie. Yes,
that's right. She's a red wig that you just can't miss, and along with a red lining to a long cape.
And also, again, in terms of the Jeopardy we're talking about, she represents the most kind of forceful evocation of that.
Yeah, she's sort of I guess she's kind of positioned as the villain, but I think she's a villain who probably turns out to be just inflexible rather than malicious.
What they used to call a martinet. Somebody who's very much part of an institution, but I mean, all these kind of crumbling institutions that are represented here. Parenthood, the police, the Boy Scouts, the government. I mean, all these institutions that are kind of really sort of ineffectual and push these kids to the outskirts. I mean, there are all these things from which they want to escape.
Most of the people in the film are wearing some kind of uniform, and I think the heroes of the story, the hero and heroine of the story, are more or less against every institution that these uniforms represent.
But these people, all people who were basically kind of doing their jobs, and to some extent or another were kind of unhappy or passed over, or had some part of their adult lives that had been unrealized.
they're Fredos.
I'm sorry, you caught me off guard with that one.
Yeah,
why do you say Fredos?
Fredo Corleone. They're all ones who got passed over. They're all people who their heart is not completely into the thing that they to the job that they've been given.
Yeah, and it's why you root for the kids so much too, because you want for them to escape from all these kinds of future debilitating conformities that adulthood offers for them. In that same sense that you feel it in Zazie or Small Change.
Yeah. Yes. I think somewhere along the way of writing it, I started having this thought that the girl has all these fantasy books, as I mentioned, and that the movie really ought to feel like it is one of those books and belongs in her suitcase. The title of the movie is like the title of a kind of young adult book, Moonrise Kingdom. What happens is meant to be reality, but the atmosphere of it is sort of magical, and the atmosphere is a fantasy.
And when you brought up Fredo, I just thought of something I guess I kind of always wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
You do have this relationship with the Coppola family. You've cast Jason Schwartzman in a number of films, including this one. You work with Roman Coppola. This is on a few scripts. Because it's funny, because I just find myself, as you're telling the story, thinking that in some ways the Coppolas remind me of the Tannenbaums, the Royal Tannenbaums.
Yeah. Well, the Tannenbaums are a combination of different families. One of them, a real family called the Tannenbaum family, who are our old friends, and then I think it's got a little bit of. I think there's a little bit of the Wilson family that's woven into it for me in the sense that Owen's character that he plays in the Royal Tenenbaums has a line that says, "I always wanted to be a Tenenbaum." At one point, I didn't want to not be with my family. I'm very close to my own family, but there was a period of time where I was really kind of living in their family, very much the way his character sort of lives with this family, so I kind of connected to that a bit.
Well, yeah, it gets back to my first question. I mean, that families in this movie too, they're trying to sort of build families, or these entities that come together and kind of make families in their way are kind of important, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that's something I feel like I end up doing with a lot of my movies is either there's a family that's in the story, or there's a group of people that have decided they're going to be a family, even though they're not related by blood. The Life Aquatic is certainly that kind of story. There's a script that I'm working on for the next film I want to do, and that one, no one has any family, and I think that's in a way part of the subject matter of it. Through its absence.
Well, I can only hope that when you get that one done, you'll come back and make your 7th appearance on the show, and the next time be sitting across from me. Thanks so much for doing this, Wes.
Thank you, Elvis. I'm very happy to be back, even remotely.
In so many ways. My guest is Wes Anderson. He's joined us from London to talk about his new film, Moonrise Kingdom. Our recording engineer at KCRW is Ray Warner. The show is mixed by J.C. Swadek. It's edited and produced by Jenny Radelet. I'm going to breakfast. I'm Elvis Mitchell. It's The Treatment.
Find past episodes of The Treatment at KCRW.com or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Listen to The Treatment on demand on your smartphone with KCRW's apps. The Treatment is produced and distributed by KCRW Santa Monica.